I have no opinion on them, so I haven't used them, so I haven't done any ratings this fucking season.
Might stay around, but in a slightly different way. So, the dinars, if you're not aware, you kill 30 raid bosses, you get a dinar. You kill 20 more, you get a dinar. You kill 10 more, you get a dinar. That's it. No more dinars. Each one of these can be exchanged for a piece of gear that is a weapon or trinket. So it's a way to basically deterministically get the most impactful thing. So it kind of exists as, except the Sylvanas bow. It exists basically as a guarantee of you not being turbo fucked over. Now, the reason why Blizzard did it, partially is an experiment, but also it's because this season is shorter than most other seasons. So he described it as it's an anti-RNG backstop. So he basically said that the dinar thing likely won't necessarily be copied over in its exact form, but the idea of an anti-RNG backstop and some security or a guarantee of eventually getting the item you're chasing, that feels like something that's useful for them to explore.
Isn't that basically the fundamental idea behind the, what do you call it? The crafting?
Oh, it's 30, 15, 10, apparently.
Yeah, so isn't that like kind of the idea behind crafting? Although I guess that's a little bit more overall gear, not specific items. I guess, depending on, because I imagine you won't be able to craft like trinkets and stuff like that are, the ones you want or the weapons. So I'll see how that actually kind of goes.
Yeah. It's interesting stuff like it's stuff like this. That's why I'm not coming back. Yeah. Stop trying to time gate how I spend my time. See, that's the funny little thing, because if these were not, you get one a boss a week. Technically everything's time gated if you're in a lockout based loot system.
Yeah, I think it's the length of the lockout's probably the thing where it's, you need to clear the raid every week for 3 weeks to get one bit of gear that you want. I think that's probably just on the high end of that is really slow. That is really slow for what the emotional experience of getting loot is, because of, I guess, generally how much loot you can get with M+, where M+ feels like, not for me until recently, generally speaking, it feels a little faster than anything else. We've kind of got the raids the slow gear track, and M+ is the accelerated one, is what it feels like a lot of the time. Obviously there's, it drops lower gear by design to actually make up for that, and there's, the Valor caps out only at such a level. So I feel like there's a little bit of contrast there that makes one of them seem worse than they are, even though it's fundamentally not too different to how it used to be. And obviously I think 30 dinars is just a lot.
Wait, yeah, hold on to your fucking horses, because a lot of people have given the feedback that the dinars are too slow.
Yeah.
Now, from Blizzard's perspective, these are not really a reward that you're chasing. These are an RNG backstop.
They're a backup, yeah.
To protect you from the bad, rather than a thing you're kind of actively trying to go and get. And I think therein lies the problem. Because to a player, this is a task to accomplish. 30 bosses, one bit of loot I definitely want. 15 more bosses, another bit of loot. 10 more bosses, another bit of loot. So to the player, this is not an RNG backstop. This is a goal to pursue.
Yeah, which is time gated by a total of 6 weeks.
Yeah. Now, Ian has said that as implemented in Season 4, it is way more accelerated than they would ever do in a regular season, and that's because Season 4 was a shorter kind of remix and greatest hits season where you're getting items you already had before, so because of that, they overall feel that the accelerated pace made sense. So they may do an RNG backstop again, but if they're going to do it, it's probably going to be slower, which I think is them being in a little bit of a main character only mindset. This is a very fundamental thing, I suppose. And maybe this is a thing where there's different goals for different players. As a sort of 2 and a bit night a week style player, that's most people would say that's enough to get, unless you're Mythic rating and trying to optimize. And maybe not so much in some parts of Shadowlands, of course, where you did want to go into Zereth more as a daily to do all your stuff to get the rep in time. But sort of that aside, and in Dragonflight, where there's less grindy stuff, you're maybe thinking 2 nights a week of your primary content is kind of what you need to get your character going, right? So be those your raid nights, your Mythic Plus nights. And maybe Right. So let's just say it's like that, right? Now, there's some people who would want to progress a character within that playtime context relatively quickly. So they're doing 2 nights a week, and those are fucking, those are rewarding nights. And then maybe 6, 7, 8 weeks later, they feel like that character's done. And like, okay, I want to try an alt. I want to try a new role, do something different, which I highly recommend. I've absolutely loved it doing healing in this season. And then they want to make that new character and still have this like fast, kind of rewarding feeling thing for that new character. But then you maybe have a player who's like, okay, but I want to play 4 nights a week and do multiple characters and, do all the things. So it's like what pace works for different players. I think Blizzard are still in this mindset where they want single characters gearing to potentially last for a whole season.
They're terrified if you've been finished.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us would say, and maybe there's some players who'd say, no, I only want to play my main. If you make it so that I finish my character, I'll have no reason to play. And that will make me feel bad because I want to have a reason to play, because I want to play World of Warcraft, and if I can finish my character too quickly, I'll have no reason to play.
Play for fun for it, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's, yeah, that.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Just play a new role, play a new class, play a new whatever.
Or
try a new goal.
Yeah. Or even then, like, instead of having the almost mandatory feeling 1 or 2 nights a week of like actually like proper fully going at it for, especially if you're trying to get raid Mythic, because if you don't raid, you're missing out on that loot. If you don't do Mythic Plus, you're missing out on that loot. Like, there is a pretty high minimum time required to move at the pace that the developers kind of assume you're going at or limit you to, or kind of like that's the pace of the pack is effectively a lot of time investment. And that means when you're falling behind the pack, you'll feel worse, and you'll be like further down the totem pole in terms of what players are getting groups and stuff like that, and you kind of fall behind this whole pack. So there's a little bit of too much there, but there was one thing to do there that would solve the problem largely is, and I don't know if they're considering this because of how people play the game for the reward loop almost, or the gearing loop almost uniquely, but one of the things to do there would be, well, make it so you can, finish your gearing in half the time, but what you assume of the player or hope of the player or design of the player's behavior is that they only spend half of that. They do it in the same real time, but half the play time in that content.
Yes, that's what I want.
And the other play time that makes up that entire season is not them going, well, I better log into my stuff, but it's, I log in, the boys aren't on, no M plus tonight then, because, Johnny always works on a Saturday. Sweet, okay, I'll go and do world content instead.
And this is where Season 4 kind of worked for me a little bit. I'll admit, I got,
world content
compared to you, reasonable loot luck.
Yeah.
Now, you got better loot luck after that initial pretty bad period. But
I still have... I still have 2 items from Season 2 that I've not been able to replace no matter what I do. It's very fun having 239s with domination sockets in them.
Oh man,
it's very, very good to open my character and see that. But I still have just pieces I've not replaced, including a trinket. I've only seen 1 trinket since playing for doing 20 dungeons or whatever else. But it's kind of like I have mediocre luck. Your character started way off worse than mine and is now an item level ahead. I'm like,
haha.
And I felt okay with the last bit of loot I've been getting, but still, it's still the RNGs. Well, but anyway, yeah.
Well, what I had is that experience anyway, where I started a new role, I started to get better at that role, learn new things in that role, and the new class, whatever. I start to feel good about that, so that's good for my intrinsic motivation. You think about the graph of, my head, right? The graph of challenge and skill level. Difficulty and skill level.
Flow chart?
Yeah, the flow chart. I think learning a new role and a new class in World of Warcraft while you are going up the Mythic Keystone levels, there's a little sweet spot where it lines up with that chart really well. And I feel like it really did for me. So that was good for my intrinsic motivation in terms of the mastery loop of why we play a video game. That same mastery loop, that's the same reason why somebody maybe they play the first few levels of Doom Eternal, then, as you would put it, they realize it's really a first-person shooter character action game, and then something flips in their head, and they just want to become the best, and they have this what's called the mastery loop really work, and that just drives into play. So for me, the mastery loop was working really well.
Yeah.
I feel like I was getting rewards for my character, and when I got those things, I felt like my character was more powerful, which, you know, getting my tier, getting all those things, just getting more stats. And while all of these things were going good, what then happened is another part of my intrinsic motivation woke up one day. And this is a part of my intrinsic motivation that has been asleep for a very...
Full hibernation.
Very, 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 very... It has been in hibernation for such a long time, where suddenly I was looking at my character and thinking, what's this character going to wear? What mount is this character going to ride? And what mount is this character going to ride in each one of its specs? And what transmog set will it wear to match the mount and match the spec? And this is literally a thing that went through my head. I'm like, oh, cool, I want to plan this out. And I'll probably do that at some stage. And that's just a great example of, though, the game, to me, it felt approachable. I was able to get around the bullshit and the hurdles. It reawakened my intrinsic motivation, and I now want to play other bits of the game just because all those other things have worked out really well. Now, unfortunately, insofar as Shadowlands world content goes, I don't really want to do that, but this is where there's actually good news for Dragonflight, because the way that I'm playing the game right now is basically just, I mean, I still need to get some more Cosmic Flux for my second Lego, but other than that, I've got my 4-piece, for me it's just get gear. Get gear, character better. I've got the 278 conduit items, so I literally don't have to think about conduits, right? I don't have to think about any of the Shadowlands systems anymore. So that's kind of like what it will be like in Dragonflight, where there's none of the borrowed power. And now that I understand how the world content works, with, you know, the invasions that are going on, the siege of the Big Keep, I saw a racing derby event on the world map when I logged in recently. All of those different things. In the current scenario that I'm in, were this Dragonflight, I would be intrinsically motivated to get the reps in those different factions, to get the nice transmogs from those factions, to, you know, do all of that, to really go deep into a profession, because the game's approachability and me feeling like I could be successful within that framework reawakened every other good thing about playing an MMO. And that is where the friction, and I think I want to do a video about this, the friction that punctuated Shadowlands is what killed that intrinsic motivation for me.
They made the whole game out of sandpaper.
They did make it out of sandpaper. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Sandpaper in your taint?
Well, either
that's my 9.1 review.
Yeah, either sandpaper or like shards of glass that have also been set on fire, depending on just how much you enjoyed the mark with you. But yeah. No, that's the thing. Where
this is good news.
Yeah,
this is good news for the future of the game.
Yeah, they just need to. It's like I see a conversation happening about how vague fun is as an idea, as a concept to talk about.
Fair play.
But it is like that's the idea of fun being pretty. Basically, if you remove friction and let the intrinsic motivation side of video game playing actually shine a bit more, then it will happen. And that's why. And that's the thing where people don't understand that whenever they look at people who do like really high Mythic Plus keys. They look at them play and go, why are you doing this? And clearly you're not doing a plus 20 or plus 20 something or plus 30 for like the extra chance at loot. You're doing that because it's actually fun to you. And I think people find it really hard to understand how people can have fun at that kind of level of gameplay, or even just by the sheer amount of it. And it's just because the style of gameplay design and combat design has kind of gotten a little bit niche at the higher ends of Mythic Plus. And that's the thing that they really need to sort of remove that, because it's like the people who enjoy that the most will suffer through anything. They will, you know, okay, maybe that's a bit not safe work as an analogy, but there is a whole thing about dragging a certain body part through a mile of glass for specific reasons, but there's the whole thing. But, you know, they will walk over the burning coals and the shards of glass, and they will, you know, crawl across the sandpaper to get to play the fun gameplay that they like. But that's the thing, where it's like that's super fun to them, whereas for a lot of other players it's like it's not very fun to do that. So the intrinsic motivation isn't as strong to get over all of the friction. So then you're just kind of like the only reason you get over the friction is because you're extrinsically motivated because the intrinsic's not there. So you're going for the reward, for the loot, and then you don't really enjoy it as much, and you're like, well, this isn't very fun. And it's a difference to me with like it's a difference for me between playing a healer and playing a tank in Mythic Plus. Where playing a healer in Mythic Plus, because I'm not pushing keys very hard, I don't really enjoy that super well. Maybe I would if I were like actually, if I didn't have to crawl through miles of broken glass to get the gear to do that, maybe I'd actually enjoy it. But it's like when I'm tanking as prop paladin, I enjoy doing dungeon content a lot more because I have the ability to, basically I have the ability to take down the negative stuff because I have so many interrupts with Vendor Shield and Blinding Light. I have the ability to heal whenever someone's, you know, like someone dips real low, I can immediately like, oh, here's like the panic mode time where people are kind of more stressed. I can remove that, so it's a little bit of a nicer, clearer experience, but that's all part of my gameplay and my optimization. Whereas as a healer or as a DPS, the optimization is number bigger. Because I've almost never healed a dungeon to the point where I need to heal or focus on healing. I just kind of heal and then DPS largely. Or, you know, maybe it's panic mode sometimes, and then I just press Convoke and they're all topped up. But playing prop paladin's more, okay, now I have to think about positioning. Now I have to think about, especially, that's why I like Grimreal Depot so much. Even though you might think I've lost my marbles, that shrapnel blast, that they're not the boomers, the gunners, I think, I can't remember what they're called, but they're the ones who use the shrapnel blast, which is the cone, that destroys DPS. So when I pull that pack, I have this thing in my head going, okay, point the shrapnel blast into the side, so the DPS who are more likely to move slightly forward and stay there. Basically, full on like babysitter mode. Like, how do I make this absolutely easy for the rest of the group? And that's like where the intrinsic motivation of enjoying the gameplay comes from. When I have the positioning, when I have the constant interrupts, when I'm playing the game as opposed to playing my class in a way, which is, you know, that's where DPS players will really like, you know, oh, how do I get as much DPS as possible out of saying Outlaw Rogue or something? It's like, I don't like that as much as I like controlling the dungeon and kind of doing all the actual stuff interacting with the world. And it's like, that's where it really shines for me. But then, you know, healing is not, because it's a different style of gameplay.
Yeah, I think for me with healing, there's something satisfying about filling up the bars, I guess. And I guess I could imagine a position where I'm not doing keys that are humongous, like I'm not doing a plus 30 or something, right? Yeah. And maybe I get bored. But at least right now, I feel like, you know, on a scale of manual mic to automatic jack, I'm in some fucking rusty car from like 1980. You know, I've got such a long journey to go before healing, you know, it ends up just being fucking boring in a dungeon. Yeah. I have such a long way to go that's just not a concern for me right now. And so many of the negatives of the Mythic Plus experience just completely disappear when you're a healer and a tank queuing together and in Discord together.
Sure do.
I think that just, I mean, the DPS are there, but the two of you are the boss at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's the fun part.